Comparatives. For more information, look in your textbook on page 239 at chart 9-4. Remember, comparatives are the words that we use when we're comparing two items or groups of items. Superlatives are the words that we use when we're comparing three or more items. Comparatives, that's what this video is going to be about, use ER or more. Some examples. That painting is more beautiful than this painting. Another example. Jan works harder than Michael. In the first sentence, we have a verb, is. Then we use more plus the adjective, more beautiful. And then than. You must always have than. In the second sentence, we have our verb, works. We add ER to the adverb, harder, and we add than. Always use than. This is clear, right? Very easy. But it gets a little more complicated, so let's look at some more examples. We're going to talk in this video about completing a comparative. So we go back to that sentence about the paintings. That painting is beautiful, and this painting is beautiful. But that painting is more beautiful than this painting is. Do you notice what I did? In the previous sentence, I said that painting is more beautiful than this painting. But in this sentence, I added the verb is to the end. You don't have to, it's optional, but sometimes we do in English. Because if you think about it, the verb is goes with both subjects. We often delete it when we're making a comparison because it's not necessary, but it's still there. The idea of that verb still exists even if we don't say it, so sometimes we say it. So if the verb of the sentence is a be verb, then that's what we're going to use even in the comparative. Remember, this is optional. We don't have to do it, but we do sometimes. Let's look at a different example. Now we're talking about Jan and Michael. They both work hard, but Jan works harder. So our sentence might look something like this. Jan works harder than Michael does. Again, does is optional. We don't have to put it, but sometimes we do. So in a comparison, the second item, if we want to add a verb, we don't have to, but we can. When we do add a verb, we have to be careful which one we add. If be is the main verb in the sentence, then be is the verb we add in the comparison. If it's any other verb, if it's an action verb, not a be verb, in the sentence, then we add the auxiliary do. So the verb in this sentence is works, so we add does, because it's an action verb. So sometimes when we have a comparative, the second item that we're comparing, we will add a verb to the end of it. And you have to decide if it's be or do. Those are your options. Let's look at a different example. Now we're comparing cars, Jared's car and Catherine's car. They're both expensive, but Jared's car is more expensive. Now we could say Jared's car is more expensive than Catherine's car, but we can also say Jared's car is more expensive than Catherine's. We don't need to say car twice. When we're showing possession, we can just use that possessive adjective both times. Jared's car is more expensive than Catherine's. Car is not necessary information. Let's practice this a little bit. Now it's your turn. Read the sentences and fill in the blanks with the appropriate word. Maybe you need to add a verb. Maybe you need to add a possessive word. Decide what you need to do. Let's look at the answers. We're comparing Jane and Ashley. They're both smart, but Jane is smarter. We could simply say Jane is smarter than Ashley, or we can say Jane is smarter than Ashley is. Then we compare Jane and Ashley again. Jane has a lot of friends, Ashley doesn't have a lot of friends. So we say Jane has more friends than Ashley does. Why do we use does here? Because our main verb is an action verb, have. If it was a be verb, we would use is, but it's not a be verb, so we use does. Then we compare Jane's desk and Ashley's desk. Jane's desk is neater, so we say Jane's desk is neater than Ashley's. We do not have to say Jane's desk is neater than Ashley's desk. We can, it's correct, but it's easier and shorter to delete desk the second time. Now let's look at some more examples of completing a comparative, this time with pronouns. Before, we were only looking at nouns. Now we're going to look at pronouns. We're going to compare Will to his sister. Will is 32 years old, and his sister is 28. So we can say Will is older than his sister, or we can say Will is older than his sister is. Remember, the is optional, but we do use it in English. We could also say Will is older than she is. She is a pronoun. It refers to his sister. Will is older than she is. We could delete she. Will is older than she. Now listen very carefully here. This is important. Will is older than she is correct, but it is very formal. It's what we use in writing. It is not something that we say very often in English. It is very formal. What we usually say is Will is older than her. So Will is older than she, written English. Will is older than her, spoken English. Let's look at another example. We're going to compare Jessica's cat and my cat. Jessica's cat is old, my cat is old. Jessica's cat is older than my cat. Makes sense, right? Or we can say, Jessica's cat is older than mine. Do you remember your possessive pronouns? Mine, his, hers, theirs, ours, yours. Don't forget those words. We use them a lot of times in comparisons. So instead of saying my cat, we can just say mine. Let's practice. Read the sentences and fill in the blanks with the correct word. Let's look at the answers. Pete and Peggy are young. Don, however, is old. So we could say many things here. We could say Don is older than they are. Don is older than they. Or Don is older than them. If you use the subject pronoun, Don is older than they, this is written English. It's very formal. We don't say this a lot. If you use the object pronoun, them, this is spoken English. That's what we say, but not usually what we write. Now we're comparing Don's office to Roger's office. We can say Roger's office is bigger than Don's. We can also say Roger's office is bigger than his. His replaces Don's. It's a possessive pronoun. For practice, Do exercise 17 on page 239 in your book.